The rancher woke early, as he did every morning, when the sun was just beginning to touch the hills with soft gold. His small ranch lay quietly in a valley, surrounded by rugged mountains. The air smelled of earth, grass, and the faint sweetness of wildflowers. He moved through his morning routine with calm precision, checking the fences, feeding the animals, and walking among the grazing cattle. Though his hands were rough from years of work, his mind often wandered to thoughts of something or someone beyond the ranch. Life here was peaceful, but it was also lonely. In the nearby hills, the Apache woman lived with her people. She was known for her strength, her courage, and her deep connection to the land. She rose with the sun as well, not out of routine but out of duty to her family and her community. She tended the small garden her people relied on, checked the animals, and walked the land with a quiet confidence that came from years of listening to the wind, the trees, and the animals. Her movements were precise and purposeful, her eyes always aware of her surroundings. She carried herself with a natural dignity that drew the respect of anyone who met her. It was by chance that their paths first crossed. The rancher had noticed a group of horses that had wandered near the edge of his land. Concerned, he rode out to guide them back. As he approached the horses, he saw her standing there, a figure tall and steady, her hands gently calming one of the animals. At first, they regarded each other with caution. Neither was sure of the other's intentions. The rancher's initial thought was that she might be angry at him for coming near her people's land. She wondered why a man from the ranch would appear so suddenly. Yet, as moments passed, they began to speak. He introduced himself in a simple, respectful manner. She replied with a nod, her voice calm and firm. Their conversation was slow at first, each learning to respect the other's boundaries. He noticed how she moved with confidence and purpose, how her eyes seemed to understand the world without needing explanation. She noticed his quiet strength, the patience in his hands, and the way he treated the animals with care. Despite the differences in their lives and the cultures they represented, there was a connection forming a recognition of the other's character. Over the next days, they met again in small ways. Sometimes it was at the river where she went to collect water and he went to check the cattle. Sometimes it was at the open field where wildflowers grew, and both appreciated the quiet beauty of the land. They began to share small stories of childhood memories, of family, and of experiences that had shaped them. The rancher told her about the ranch, about his work, and the peace he found in solitude. She spoke of her people, the traditions they followed, and the lessons the land had taught her. In these exchanges, they discovered shared values. The rancher found himself looking forward to these meetings more than he had expected. He admired her bravery and her intelligence. He admired the way she listened before she spoke, how her words carried weight because they were chosen carefully. For her part, she noticed his kindness and his thoughtfulness. He did not rush to judge or impose his ideas. He observed, he listened, and he acted with a quiet certainty. Slowly, a sense of trust began to grow between them, like the roots of a tree reaching deep into the earth. One afternoon, as the sun was beginning to dip behind the mountains, they found themselves at the river again. The rancher had been helping a calf that had wandered too far from its mother. She had come to draw water, her basket in hand, and paused when she saw him. This time, there was no need for introductions or cautious words. They worked together naturally, her hands steadying the calf, his hands guiding it back to safety. As they finished, he looked at her and, without thinking much, said, "I've dreamed of meeting someone like you." Her eyes widened slightly at the words, and for a moment, the quiet riverbank seemed to hold its breath. She looked at him carefully, studying his expression. There was no arrogance, no expectation, only honesty. She smiled faintly, a small gesture that carried more warmth than words ever could. "You speak openly," she said softly. "That is rare." From that day forward, their encounters took on a new depth. They shared more of their lives, their hopes, and even their fears. The rancher spoke of his loneliness, of the longing for companionship that he had felt for years. She spoke of the responsibility she bore for her family and community, and of the pride and weight that came with it. In their conversations, they found a balance. He offered quiet support, and she offered wisdom and strength. Yet, even as they grew closer, they were aware of the challenges. Their worlds were different, shaped by culture, tradition, and expectations. There were moments of misunderstanding, small disagreements about ways of life, or assumptions made too quickly. Each time, they stepped back, listened, and tried to understand the other. In these moments, respect deepened, for they realized that true connection was not about agreement, but about listening and valuing the other's perspective. As weeks passed, their bond strengthened. The rancher began leaving small gifts for her: a basket of fruit from his orchard, a carefully folded cloth. She responded with simple gestures, a quiet smile, a piece of handcrafted beadwork, a story shared at the riverbank. These gestures were not grand, but they spoke volumes. They showed attention, care, and a desire to be present in each other's lives. One evening, as the sun set in fiery colors across the sky, they walked together along a narrow trail that led through wildflowers and tall grass. The rancher spoke of his dreams for the future, of hopes for a life filled with partnership and shared experiences. She listened, her eyes reflecting the fading light, and shared her own dreams of a life where her strength and knowledge could be respected and where she could choose her own path. They realized that though their lives had been separate, their hearts had begun to walk in the same direction. By the end of that day, the rancher felt a quiet certainty he had never known before. He admired her not only for her beauty, but for her courage, her wisdom, and the way she lived with integrity. For her part, she saw a man who was patient, honest, and genuinely kind, someone who could be a partner, not just in work, but in life. The story of their meeting and growing connection was not marked by dramatic events or sudden gestures. It was quiet, steady, and real. It was built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and the small moments that mattered most. And though they both knew challenges lay ahead, the foundation of their bond was strong, rooted in admiration, understanding, and the slow unfolding of trust. As the first part of their story came to a close, the rancher looked across the hills at the place where the Apache woman had disappeared into the trees. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for that first encounter at the river, for the chance to know her, and for the quiet promise of what might come. For the Apache woman, the thought of the rancher brought warmth to her heart and a quiet hope. They were two people from different worlds, yet their paths had crossed, and in that crossing, something remarkable had begun. And so, as the stars began to appear in the night sky, both returned to their homes, carrying with them the beginnings of a connection that would shape their lives. The land around them remained as it always had, quiet, steadfast, and enduring. But now, it held a new story, one of respect, admiration, and the first spark of something that could grow into love. The days turned into weeks, and the rancher and the Apache woman continued to meet, their connection growing stronger with every shared moment. They walked together along the riverbanks, worked side by side in the fields, and often sat in quiet companionship, watching the sun rise or set. What had started as cautious curiosity had grown into a deep friendship, and slowly, both felt something more taking root, a bond that neither had expected but could not ignore. The rancher found joy in the smallest details of their time together. He admired the way she moved with grace and certainty, how her laughter could fill the air without ever seeming forced. He noticed the way she listened with full attention when he spoke, making him feel truly seen. For her, he became someone who could be trusted completely. a person who did not judge her for her strength or her ways, but instead respected them. This mutual respect formed the foundation for something deeper than friendship, something neither of them could name yet. One afternoon, a challenge arose that tested their connection. A sudden storm rolled across the valley, bringing heavy rain and strong winds. The rancher was out with his cattle when the storm began, and he saw the Apache woman struggling to protect her small garden from the floodwaters. Without hesitation, he rode to her side. Together, they worked quickly, moving sandbags, securing plants, and ensuring the animals were safe. The storm was fierce, but they faced it together, their trust in one another evident in every shared glance and every coordinated movement. By the time the rain subsided, both were soaked and exhausted. But there was a quiet sense of triumph. They had faced adversity side by side, and in doing so, had grown closer. After the storm, they sat on a large rock by the river, drying off and catching their breath. The rancher looked at her and spoke softly. "I've never met anyone who faces life as you do. You are strong, brave, and wise." He paused, unsure if he should continue. She looked at him with calm eyes, waiting. "I admire you," he said finally. "More than I can say." "No." She smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "And I admire you," she replied. "You are steady, kind, and careful in ways that many are not. I trust you. And that is not given lightly." Their eyes met, and in that moment, unspoken feelings passed between them. Feelings of admiration, respect, and the quiet beginnings of love. Despite the growing bond, both knew challenges lay ahead. Their worlds were different, and not everyone would understand or accept their connection. The rancher worried about the opinions of his neighbors and family. She worried about her people and the expectations placed upon her. They spoke openly about these concerns, sharing their fears and supporting each other. Their honesty only strengthened their relationship, teaching them that true connection requires both courage and vulnerability. In the following weeks, they continued to spend time together, learning from one another. The rancher taught her practical skills for managing cattle, mending fences, and tending to the land in ways he had learned over the years. She taught him about tracking animals, reading the weather, and understanding the deeper rhythms of the land. Each lesson was accompanied by laughter, gentle teasing, and moments of admiration. They were not only learning from each other but growing closer through shared experiences. One evening, as the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, the rancher invited her to walk to the hill behind his ranch. From there, they could see the valley stretch out like a living tapestry of green and gold. As they walked, he spoke of his dreams not just of work or land, but of life. "I have always thought that happiness was in the quiet of the ranch," he said. "But now I see that happiness is also in sharing life with someone who understands you, who walks beside you, and who respects you for who you are." She listened carefully, her hand brushing against his as they walked. She felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of hope that perhaps two different worlds could indeed come together. "I have also dreamed of such a life," she said softly. "One where strength and respect guide our steps, and where we choose our paths together." They stood on the hilltop, looking out over the land, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The quiet was filled with understanding and promise. But life, as it often does, brought unexpected challenges. A dispute arose over grazing land between the rancher and a neighboring landowner. Tensions ran high, and there were disagreements that threatened to overshadow the growing bond between the rancher and the Apache woman. She supported him with calm wisdom, helping him see solutions that balanced fairness and firmness. His patience and thoughtfulness reassured her, reminding them both that together, they could face obstacles that might have seemed insurmountable alone. Through these challenges, their connection deepened further. They learned that love was not just about admiration or desire, but about partnership, respect, and shared responsibility. The rancher admired her ability to stay composed in difficult situations. She admired his ability to remain steady and thoughtful, even under pressure. They were learning to navigate life together, understanding that true connection required effort, patience, and empathy. One quiet evening, as stars began to appear in the sky, the rancher presented her with a simple gift: a small, handcrafted basket filled with herbs and dried flowers from his land. "I wanted to give you something that shows how much I value you," he said. She accepted it with a gentle smile, touched by the thoughtfulness behind the gesture. In return, she gave him a carefully woven bracelet, simple but meaningful, a symbol of trust and friendship. The exchange was quiet, but it spoke volumes about their growing bond. Their relationship continued to flourish, built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and the quiet joy of companionship. They laughed together, worked together, and sometimes sat in silence, simply enjoying the presence of the other. Each day brought small gestures, conversations, and moments that strengthened their connection. They were learning not only about each other, but also about themselves, discovering strengths, values, and hopes they had not fully recognized before. As months passed, both realized that their feelings had grown beyond friendship. The rancher admired not only her beauty and strength but also her wisdom, her courage, and the way she carried herself with dignity. She admired his patience, his honesty, and the quiet determination that guided his life. Their bond had evolved into a partnership of equals, rooted in respect, understanding, and care. The story reached a turning point one warm evening when they sat together by the river. The rancher took a deep breath and said, "I know our lives are different, and there may be challenges ahead, but I want you to know that I see you, all of you, and I hope we can walk this path together." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light, and replied, "I see you as well, and I believe that together we can face whatever comes. I trust you, and I am willing to try." In that moment, they both understood that their connection was real and meaningful. It was not built on fleeting attraction or simple admiration, but on shared values, trust, and the quiet strength of two people who respected each other deeply. They had faced small and large challenges together, learned from one another, and built a foundation that could endure. The story did not end with grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Instead, it ended with the quiet certainty of partnership, the understanding that love and respect could transcend differences in background, culture, and life experiences. They returned to their homes that night with hearts full of hope, knowing that the path ahead would have obstacles but also knowing that they would face it together. The rancher continued his work on the land, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The Apache woman continued her duties with her people, carrying the quiet strength of their bond with her. And though their worlds were different, they had found a common ground, an understanding built on respect, shared experiences, and the possibility of a life walked together. The land around them remained as it had always been: vast, enduring, and beautiful. But now it held a new story, a story of two people who had met by chance, learned from one another, faced challenges together, and discovered that connection, respect, and love could flourish even in the most unexpected places. And as the stars shone brightly above the valley, both the rancher and the Apache woman felt a quiet peace, knowing that this was only the beginning of a shared journey, one filled with promise, trust, and the enduring strength of true companionship.